So, Louise, welcome and thank you so much for coming along to this coaching plan session. And as we've talked about, the idea is you understand what a coaching plan is because you're a coach, but also you've completed all the paperwork that I asked you to do, but I asked you not to send it because that sometimes happens with coaches that the coachee doesn't send the paperwork. So we wanted to be able to do a recording when I haven't seen the paperwork, but you've definitely done it. Is that okay with you?
Great, yep.
Fab, fab. Okay, just before we start, because you knew we've had this in the diary for a little while. What are you looking forward to about talking about and going through your coaching plan?
Um, Actually, it's funny because I've done a bit of coaching on the course, and one of the things that was really great for me was I had a real career crossroads dilemma, and I came to the conclusion that it was okay not to know for the time being. That was my sort of outcome, really. And actually, some things have changed now contextually in terms of my different plans and things I'm doing. And when I was reflecting, I was thinking I'm at a different stage now. I'm ready to make a bit more of a decision. So yeah, so that's what I'm hoping to hopefully come out with a bit more direction.
Fab, fab, brilliant. Well, for those coaches who are watching this who haven't seen a coaching plan before, the idea of today's conversation is for you to be able to name your overall goal, what you want to achieve from a few coaching sessions, and then see if we can identify a few topics that you would bring to each of the 4 or 6 or however many coaching sessions that we'd have. And the idea of not coaching all the way through them, but spending enough time on each of those topics to make sure that they're worthwhile. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And we'll start perhaps with your goal. Like if you think about an overarching goal, either one that's occurring to you now or one you write in your paperwork, what is your big goal that you'd like to achieve from a few coaching sessions?
Need a bit of help with wording it. So it's what I kept writing down was long term, but I don't know if that's exactly what I mean. I think so. One thing I'm just looking at it. One thing I wrote was long term goals, including what life looks like. And that sounds really vague, but the question underneath that is: am I a coach, advisor, teacher, head teacher, or a combination of these? So help.
Yeah, we'd have to go and look at the word count on LinkedIn. What is a descriptor you can put up under your name?
Yeah, yeah, could be a bit shorter than that. um, Yeah, I think the one that's really sticking out like a sore thumb there is head teacher.
Mm.
Um, because so at the moment I'm working as an advisor to schools, which I'm really loving. And I think when I went into that, it was a little bit of an interim. I decided not to continue being a head teacher, and I went into advisory work with the idea that I probably would go back to head teaching, but it was sort of a circumstantial thing, really. But I've absolutely loved doing the role, and I think I could carry on doing it, and I'd love to. Um, but that's what gave me the opportunity to do the coaching course, and that's the thing I love the most. So, absolutely, hands down, that's what I'm really enjoying. More than being a head teacher, more than being an advisor. And I think being the advisor helps facilitate me being a coach because I can do that part time, both things part time. So it's quite good. But at the same time, I don't know if I'm ready to let because I did used to love being a head teacher as well. I used to be that was the best job in the world. So I suppose it's my question is, what's my long term plan? Am I ever going to go back into school? Or do I really want to commit to taking coaching forward? And the circumstances that have changed are that I've been approached by a couple of people that someone I've been coached by, and a couple of other people who would like me to do professional coaching for them or with them, and I'm starting to envisage that as being part of my future. And I can't do that. I don't think I can do that at the same time as being a head teacher. So yeah, I think I'm ready to make a bit more of a concrete decision about that.
Okay. So you're saying that there's a potential long-term plan. You've got all of these things in the air, uh, uh, and trying to see whether you can do one or a combination of
Or a combination, or yeah, and am I really ready to say I won't go back into school again?
Okay, so there already we're hearing like there are some sub themes, aren't there, that are emerging from here.
Yeah,
Let's go forward. Let's go forward to, if I can talk in school calendar time, to the end of this academic year, right? So
that's a good plan. Yeah.
next summer holidays 2025.
Mhm.
You've had half a dozen coaching sessions. You've worked through all of this. Where would you like to be with this overarching theme of you and your long-term future?
Um, yeah, that's a good one. So I think timescale wise, I've got another year. I mean, my status quo is great at the moment because I've just taken on some more advisory work. So I've got enough of that that I can do, you know, half the week doing that, and well, a bit more than half the week, and half the week doing coaching if I can. So I suppose what I'd like to do by the summer, I would like to actually be doing professional coaching. I think that's, I, I think that's, yeah. And then, but then is the business plan then to expand, to really go for the business of coaching and to try and expand that? Or do I want to go back to school? I don't know, Charlie. Help.
So you're not sitting here tub thumping saying school is done. Don't even mention school to me ever again. Um, but you've definitely got a sense of you want to go towards coaching.
Yeah, I mean, I think in reality, I would love to be a professional coach. I think that I would love to do that 100% of the time, but I am realistic and I know that um, that's not necessarily a possibility. And although part of me kind of wishes it was. So, and then and then I can carry on doing the advisory work to supplement it, which is fine. But I don't think as an advisor, I think you've got a certain number of years of doing that before your relevance. I'm a good advisor now because I've just been ahead, and I really do understand what the pressures are like in the current educational climate, which is really pressured. Um, and I wonder how long I can carry on doing that. Um, and still be relevant. So it's not like that, those two things can't carry on together forever. Um, and also how willing am I to let go of, being a head teacher was part of my identity as well. So how willing am I to let go of being a I still find it really difficult when I have to introduce myself to people that I didn't know before, and I don't say I'm a head teacher.
Yeah.
It's or before that a deputy head teacher or just a teacher. It's easy to say that everyone knows what you mean, and it was a status, a bit of a status thing as well. And I always had interesting anecdotes because then they'd say, "Oh, tell me about this," and then I would tell them about school. And it's a bit different now. Sometimes it's a bit of a conversation stopper, and that's not a problem. It's not about the small talk, but it's just more about the identity thing. My identity was very much I'm a head, and I thought I would be one forever. So this has been a bit of a surprise to me.
I'm sorry that coaching has turned up and disrupted your equilibrium. I'm
Yes,
thinking about, everyone knows what a head teacher is and no one knows what a coach is, and everyone's always
yes,
confused and go like, what?
yeah,
Goodness.
yeah. And then I always feel uncomfortable because I feel like they think I'm trying to sell them my service. But people are always really interested actually in coaching too. It's not that. It's just it's me feeling I know what my identity is. I suppose actually that's probably the heart of it is I don't really know what my identity is at the moment. I'm really in a um how where do I consider myself? Because I'm not a professional coach yet. I've just finished the course. Um yeah, that's it.
So and you will know this from the coaching that you've done, is that lots of people come to coaching in this type of transitional moment when
Yeah.
when change is in the air and these things are swirling around. But you've identified an overarching goal, haven't you? So that by the summer holidays, you'd like to be able to see where you are in this professional coaching
Yeah.
arena, and also to be clear on your relationship with you as a head teacher and what's going to happen with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me suggest this. So why don't we spend a bit of time thinking about how we could use each of the individual coaching
Yeah,
sessions? You've already put a couple of things on the table here around these different professional practices. And then maybe after that, we can spend a bit of time looking at what emerged from your questionnaire, because there may be some thoughts and feelings from that you might want to bring
yeah,
into the conversation. Is that okay?
that's great.
Okay. So start with the head teacher one, if that's all right. So
Mm.
if you were going to devote a coaching session to this question, should I stay or should I go? Should I go back to headship? What would be a benefit of talking through that bit of the conversation?
I think that would be really important because I actually need to remember why I loved it, because I can't. um, I can, but it's not, the feeling isn't there anymore. And what I when I do find myself in flow and really having great thoughts and feeling creative, and that tends to be around the coaching now. So, but I do remember having that feeling as a head. But I think maybe it was quite a long time ago, and maybe latterly towards the end of my um, time in that role, I'd lost it because of other things that were happening. I suppose it would be good to reflect on why I lost that kind of feeling of creativity and enjoyment. And was it all contextual? Because things have changed a lot in education. So maybe it was just the way that education's changing, but maybe it was something about me and the way I was growing and developing that was is more what kind of moved me away from it. I mean, actually, I didn't leave it thinking I was going to leave it forever. I did think I thought I was going to move house and get another job and get a headship somewhere else. And then we didn't move house. And then the advisory role came up and I sort of took a bit of a leap. So it wasn't really a planned exit from headship. I suppose, yeah. So I suppose there's something about exploring why that happened, and I've not really looked back at all. So why haven't I looked back?
And is there, maybe this comes on later, but is there something about your style, your thinking patterns and so on that doesn't look back?
Mm, that's really good. Yeah, that's true.
Sorry,
I'm not really a retrospective sort of. No, I'm not. That's weird. I wonder why. Hmm. Maybe there's something about novelty then. Um, yeah, it would be really good to explore that because I think you're right. That it would be, why did I do it? Why did that just happen like that? It's a bit of a leap to take, wasn't it?
What, to go from a job to a secondment to then not go back
Yeah.
to it?
Yeah, and I mean, it wasn't even, I'd left my job without anything to go to. And then a thing came up and I thought, oh, I'll give that a go. And actually, it's been great. Um, it's been brilliant, in fact. It's been so, the thing I love about the advisory is going to see lots of different schools. And that's something I never had the opportunity to do as a head. I was really, I was 18 years in one school. So, but I did think I'd be a head teacher forever. So it's amazing that I just did that. So yeah, that would be really good to look at why, how that happened. Yeah.
I woke up one morning suddenly I'm not ahead.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it wasn't at all like that. I didn't wake up one. It was a long plan. I gave my notice a long time before. So yeah, it would be really good to explore that.
so it sounds like there's two bits of that, isn't there? There's the
Yeah,
your relationship with being a head teacher, but then there's also this you and your decision making pattern and how that works. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Um, there was something else that you said before. I just need a moment to think back on it. So just give me a sec. What was that question that emerged? Yeah, that's right. Something you mentioned about the status of headship and the fact that, as a society, it has one of the highest capitals, isn't it? The people really, really hold head teachers in high regard, even if some of us are terrified of them. Is that part of what you'd want to talk about in that conversation?
Yeah, and I don't think status is the right word for me because I've thought about that quite a lot. It's an identity. It was my identity, and it was an easy way to explain myself. I felt very much that that's who I was. It tells you everything. For me, it tells you a lot about a person if that's what they do. Well, I think, and I suppose that's another thing that came up to me when I was reflecting and going through the questionnaire. I always think everyone else thinks what I think. And I know that's not true, and that's something I would like to explore. But I think saying you're a head teacher tells people that you care, that you are, competent. So there's something of the status about that, and that you're and that you want to make a difference, maybe. And that might be completely different from what other people read into it. But in a way, I suppose it doesn't matter to me what other people read into it. But that's I felt by saying that was a shortcut to saying, this is here are some things about me.
Yes.
And it's different. And actually, one of the things I wrote in my reflections was, which I hadn't thought about before until I started writing this, was something about my children and looking through. I think my children have never really understood why I stopped being a head teacher. And I think for them, they quite like that being, when people ask you what your parents do, they quite like saying my mum's a head teacher, because for them, there was something in that as well. And I think I just wondered if they thought I'd failed to be a head teacher. And I wonder if I think that as well. So that, now I just thought that. I didn't think that before, and I wrote it down. So I wonder if there's something that's that's wrapped up in it as well.
So is it? I mean, this sounds really leading, but it seems evident that it's really worth putting some time on this for all sorts of reasons, not just the pragmatic. Do you go back to it? But the thing you just said there, your kids, and the failed word that you just used.
Yeah.
And to be clear, the word status, I don't think you used it. I think I used it. But you've used the word identity. So if you gave a session or even a couple of sessions to this, what benefit do you think there would be for bottoming this out?
Yeah, I think that would really help with clarity. I think there's something about reflecting on my decision. I don't think I've actually done that. Why did I make? And actually, people do often ask me, and I almost have a different answer to everyone, and they're all true. but and I was thinking about that the other day and thinking I need to come up with just a straightforward answer of why I'm not a head teacher anymore, because it's not very straightforward, I think, in my mind. So a bit of clarity on that would be good, because that would help me then know whether I want to go back to it or not. Yeah.
And we don't have to decide now. You don't have to limit how many of your sessions you use to that topic. It might be all of them, it might be many, but there certainly seems to be lots of richness. Fab, thank you. Especially when you need to hear all the answers that you give to every different person. That'll take time,
yeah.
Is that enough on that first one? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah.
So the second significant one came up with the shall I be a professional coach? I want to be a professional coach. I'm not a professional coach. All of that. So what are your thoughts about bringing that to at least one session?
Yeah, that would be good, because what I would like to do is come up with a business plan. But I think before I come up with a business plan, I need to know, what are my values as a coach, and what do I actually want to achieve from the coaching? It's not just that I want to have work, which would be nice, but it's not really that. It's how do I want to? I find that when I've been coaching, I've been feeling really useful. That's the word that keeps coming back to me. And I think that's how I felt as a head as well. So they do link. And I think I've realized that's really important to me. But it's what is that usefulness? Who am I going to be useful to? How am I going to get the most out of doing it? So then that leads into the business plan and kind of setting up a website and those kinds of things, and knowing how to approach people. I mean, there is already some work, I think. So there'll be, that it can happen. And I'm in a really great position to be able to just take some of that on, but not need it for a full-time job. So it's sort of, what's my direction to kind of just propel me off to get all that done.
And the decision you'd want to be making by the end of one or two sessions on this professional coaching would be what?
Am I really going to commit to it?
Hmm.
Or is it just going to be something I do? So, for example, I make candles.
Who knew? Who knew?
I'm actually sitting next to a massive pile of candles right now. And I love making them. I really enjoy making them. If I didn't make candles, I would spend a fortune on candles because I love them. So I make them for myself and I make them for presents, and that's why there's a big pile here because it's Christmas. And people keep saying, "Oh, these are you're ready for Etsy. You should put these on. That you're ready to go and promote yourself and all of that." And that's not what I don't want to do that. I don't want to do a candle business. I mean, it would be lovely, but it's not. I know that that's not going to be lucrative. It's yeah. So that I dabble in candle making. I don't want to dabble in coaching. I want to be definitive. Um, I want to decide to be a coach and then do it. And actually, I think that's why this is the perfect timing because I do have at least one day spare a week where I could really commit myself to that and actually do coaching. So I think by the end of the year, I'd like to have done some professional coaching and have set up a proper business so that it's ready to go. And then it can expand if it's possible. And if it's not possible, I can hopefully maintain it. So yeah, I think that the decision is, am I going to commit to it?
And you're going to commit to it, and then sounds like there's some practical things that you can explore in coaching as well
Yeah,
about a bit about that.
how to do that. Yeah.
And what would it mean to you to make some progress on the coaching thing within all of it?
Well, that's the thing I'm loving the most. I just love it. I feel, as I say, I feel really useful. I feel like I'm getting better every time I do coaching, and um, it's it's really important to me because when I was ahead, it was really tough, and that's probably one of the things that I would explore in coaching. But what I find it quite cathartic that I'm able to help people who are in the same situation, feeling the same feelings, and experiencing that isolation. And I just think it's essential for head teachers to have coaches, and that I would that's where I feel incredibly useful.
Yes.
So I don't know what your question was. I just just started
Yeah,
reflecting.
just trying to get like a sense of the meaning for you, but it leads me to another question. Like, is I'm right in saying, aren't I, that most of the people you've coached have been serving heads, haven't they?
Yeah, yeah, and school lead. Well, one, yeah, deputy, and otherwise all heads. Yeah.
So does it feel like it's being useful for useful people, being useful for head teachers? You're not coaching, so sorry to any bankers who might tune in, but you're not coaching a banker, right? You're coaching a head teacher.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's probably also, where am I going to position myself?
Yeah.
And it, is it, I know it shouldn't be sector dependent. So I'm also open to, I'd love to work with people from different sectors and discover that. That might be something to explore as well, having mostly worked with people in education.
Okay. So there's some practical things that you can bring, but also some of those practical things might sit outside of coaching, might there? There might be planning and so on, but there's some
Mm.
things to explore. And what are you looking forward to about spending time in coaching, talking about you as a coach?
Well, for the same reasons that I love being a coach, is I just think it's really valuable thinking times.
Yeah.
Even just now, there's been a couple of things I've thought about that I hadn't, even when I was writing reflections and the outcomes questionnaire and everything, didn't come to me until I was talking and thinking aloud. I just think it's a really useful space, um, and I have got a lot of, I'm excited because I'm really excited about all these potential decisions. Everything's a win.
Yeah.
Any direction I go in at the moment is a win. And so that's a nice, because often you come to coaching when you've got a real problem and obstacles. And actually, I don't really feel like I've got any obstacle to any of them. So it's just the only thing that's getting in my way is my decision.
So when I said earlier on that lots of people come to coaching because of change and transition, yeah, you're right. It doesn't have to be negative, does it? It can be
Mhm.
change of possibility. Okay, fair. Okay. Enough on that. Is that enough on that? Enough on the coaching bit. Okay, fair. The third one, when you mentioned about being an advisor, is that something that needs exploring? Like, discreetly in coaching, or is it just something that is more pragmatic? Sorry, that sounds leading, but you spent less time talking about the advisor thing. So what do you
Yeah.
think?
Hmm. I think it will probably come up under the other two because it's relevant to head teaching because I've seen so many other schools now, which I hadn't. I had just been, I've been a very long time in my school, and it would be, it's relevant to that decision about going back in because now I've seen lots of different ways of doing it, and and understanding that it's very context dependent, and I've learned so much. So it's kind of relevant to that, and it's relevant to the coaching in that it's enabling the coaching. Um, but also I am really loving it in itself. So maybe it is worth exploring because I think I've really written it off in my head. When I started doing it, I said to myself, well, you can only do this for a couple of years and stay relevant. But I do know lots of other advisors that I work with who've been doing it for longer than 2 years and they're still relevant. So, and mostly because of the extra experience they're getting. So it might be worth a brief, just exploring how long I really get, like making a plan for that as well, because that actually, and then that affects both of them, because how long does that carry on, that part-time arrangement,
Yes.
which enables one or the other, or enables one, but would have to stop if I did the other.
Yes. So you could be a part-time advisor and grow your coaching business, but not a
Yeah.
part-time advisor and a full-time.
Yeah, I don't, you can't do both. Well, actually, I do know people who do both, but I couldn't do both. No way.
And how do you see it as a supportive function for coaching, if that's what it's going to be?
Yeah, I mean, it is really, and actually, I do quite a lot of coaching in that role as well. So I'm able to keep keep practicing, and spending some of my visit time with head teachers doing a coaching session if they're in agreement that's really great for them. And it's really good for me in terms of just developing my practice, and I can work with lots of different people in schools. I often do senior leader coaching and things like that, and um, so there's a real cross. It's very harmonious. That works incredibly well. Yeah.
And if you're like if you think about how you talked about being a head, talking about the head thing, think about that coach thing, both of those seem to have like quite a lot of reflection, not sure, and so on. This one
Mm.
is just a little bit more certain. It's really clear this will be a good thing, just whether you can fit it in or not.
Yeah, and whether I can stay relevant, how long can I do it? And I think that's a decision for me. No one else is forcing me to make a decision on that. I just need to decide. And also, because I would quite like to do it for longer, but then how can I suppose how can I stay relevant? So, for example, when I know someone who does advisory, and what they did was Ofsted training, so that that would be really relevant and helpful for their schools. Not because they wanted to be an Ofsted inspector, but I'm definitely not doing that.
Yes.
Just to say. But is there something else I could do? Is there some professional development I could do that could help me to stay relevant for longer and be again? It's all about being useful, isn't it? I don't want to do a job where I'm not useful to people, so I'd like to set my own parameters for how long I can do that and how I can stay because I do. Yeah, I do really enjoy it, and it is helpful in terms of facilitating coaching.
Okay. So you're picking common threads, aren't you, with that and the coaching and the headship? Okay.
Yeah,
So should we then take this then as another topic, and maybe don't answer this now, but think about like what's the order of the sequence? Would you have the coaching first and then
yeah,
the headship and then the advisor, or the other way around? Just decide.
yeah. I mean, I think I wonder if the co the bit about the advisory role might come under a sort of lifestyle question because my lifestyle since not being ahead has been a lot better. Like my not lifestyle, home life, work life balance. That's partly because I'm part time, but I think I'd like to explore that because I that's a big part of it, isn't it? Being present for your family and having time to make candles. They wouldn't have done that when I was ahead. So, yeah, I think that maybe the advisory is also part of how my life's changed.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, whether I want to protect that or not. I didn't have a bad life before as a head teacher, actually, but in terms of work-life balance, there was a lot of stress that spilled over. But I did have family time. Anyway, it would just be that would be good to explore, I think.
And actually that question, if we move on then from the advisory thing, that question about, this modern language of the work-life balance and stress and home and work, is that an area? Is that something that you want to dedicate a bit of coaching time to?
Yes, well, it's either that. So, Charlie, I've got two things because I was looking at my values came out as well because it said, "Do I know what my values are?" And I suddenly thought, well, I've done a lot of work on that with other people,
Yeah.
and I can see how really important that is, and it's always useful to coachees. And I think that maybe I've still got the school values sort of ingrained. If someone asked me what my values are, I'd probably say that what my old school,
What, the
school
laminated
values.
ones, right?
Yeah,
Brilliant.
and as they are, I mean, I did have to pretty much. I mean, obviously, it was a consultation process, but at the end of the day, the head teacher sets the values, so they probably are my values. But I would really like to know. I've never thought about sort of revisiting that. So yeah, and I wonder. So I don't know. It's either I don't help either work life or balance or values.
Well, I mean, I don't think in coaching we have to limit the topics. If there are more topics than the time allows, right? You either have extra sessions, or sometimes you find that two topics bleed into
Yeah.
one, or it bounces onto the next program of coaching. Okay, so well, on values, then, what would it mean to you to own them for you as opposed to own them for your school?
I think it's really important. I mean, I had some sort of group coaching at school once with the leadership team, and I remember talking about the value of love and everybody describing what that because that was one of our school values, and everybody describing what that meant to them, and it was completely different for every single person around the table. And these are the kind of things that I blow my mind because I know that I come at things from a point of view that everyone thinks the same as me. Um, and I realized that my definition of love was actually wrong. Like it was really unhelpful. Mine was about making people happy, and that's not showing them love, really. I mean, it can be a lovely byproduct, but that's actually not it, is it? But that was what I thought. So yeah, so I think exploring those again and really thinking about what they mean to me, because that's all that matters really with your own values. Um, yeah, I think that could be good, really. It would help with lots of things because actually, if I know what they are, then I can decide how important it is to go back into whether I do ever want to go back into school in any role, actually, as a teacher, as a head teacher, or whether those values are more and skills, perhaps strength skills as well, are more directed towards coaching. So I think it would be really useful for both.
So it sounds very clear, doesn't it, that this would be a really good bit of work. So you
Yeah,
don't need to focus it on anymore. But you're saying you can see a connection between working out your values and some of these choices that you need to make.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think actually that's probably the first thing, isn't it?
The order is on you, isn't it? I mean, and I think, I mean, although I do tend to want to ask people today, what feels like priority, you can still mull it over, but at the moment you feel like that would be a good starting point.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think so.
And then you said work-life balance. So let's talk about that for a bit. What would be a
Yeah,
benefit of talking about that in the coaching context?
it's really important, isn't it? Actually, it's a massive part of the decision. Because my work-life balance is better now, not really because I'm doing any more or less work. Well, no, I am doing less work because I'm working part-time. But I'm just thinking about family actually, because they're at school. But this role and this lifestyle has been better for them because I'm often at home when they come home, even if I'm working, because I work from home more often. Um, and yes, I suppose there's something about what's been the benefit to my children of changing the role. Um, because it definitely has been a benefit, but I don't know if it is significant enough to not go back if that's what I wanted to do.
Yes.
Mm.
Okay. And so is it the balance for the kids, or is it for you, or is it for both?
Yeah, it's well, the kids, the balance is the question about the balance is for the kids.
Mm,
For me, I always felt like I had, because I had three young children when I was really young, when I was head, um, and I always had to make time for, I had to be home at a certain time, and that was probably one of the things that made the job more stressful. But in terms of actually being there for them, I always was.
mm.
But I wonder if the two things that maybe that the impact was the stress. So that's hang on, I've looked. It's so for the children, it's the impact of the time,
Mm.
but and maybe me being more present. And for me, it's the impact of being able to be there for them and also not bringing my work home with me, which I don't now do. And whether that's impact, well, I know it's impacted on my well-being. But I also think that there are ways of being a head teacher that where you can, and that's one of the things I've learned from being an advisor, you can manage your stress better. So I suppose if I did go back to headship, the question would be how could I structure it slightly different? What would be the optimum type of headship role, type of school, that sort of thing, I suppose.
So this as a theme is something that, again, like but values, it will bleed into those other topics.
Yeah.
Um, and you've also had changes, haven't you? You had changes this last year, so you were being able to observe yourself in a number of different contexts. So what would it mean to you to get really clear on your work-life balance parameters?
Hmm. I think it's something about identity actually, because we started off talking about me talking about my headship identity, and I think I don't have that's not me anymore. I am, and that's all that business about sort of separating out the values. I think it's sort of learning. Oh God, it sounds really it's like learning who I am. It sounds so naff. Um, Yeah, but it is actually. It's learning who I am, not as a head. Let's define my identity without wrapping it all up in the package of head teacher.
Yes.
Mm. And actually, that's going to help with everything because that's going to help me make a decision about what I want to do next. Because it's not about identity then. I am a person that might decide to be a head teacher. and I'm also a person that might decide to, move down in towards much more advisory and coaching side of things. And that will help me to decide how I market myself as a coach and, or if I go the other way, how what kind of head I want to be and what circumstances that wants to be. Yeah, there would be a huge amount of clarity there.
Goodness me. So it's gone from, what time will you get home from work and do you have to pick up the kids to actually
Who am I?
who am I? Who are you?
Yeah. No, but I'm really excited about that. I don't, it's not that I don't know. I do know. I just like to be able to sort of identify it.
Yes.
And then once you can articulate it, then introducing yourself at dinner parties becomes less of a problem.
Well, I like the idea that you just get invited to dinner parties. I mean, that's
I don't really. I don't know where I'm introducing myself.
goodness. So we got another topic. It sounds like we've got five now, doesn't it? Of significance. And I did say at the beginning, we've got you've got the paperwork, got the questionnaire, and you've been referring to it, alluding to it, and it's influenced you. But before we close, maybe let's go back to the questionnaire and see if there's anything from either of the questionnaires that you think something emerged from what you wrote that is something that you'd like to bring to coaching, or that really caught your eye, that gave you some food for thought.
Well, the question that said, "How will you know 6 months from now that it's made a positive difference?" What will you see, hear, and feel? And I wrote, I'll be doing something that makes a difference, which is what I've always wanted to do, but I'm not sure what that thing is.
Mm.
I suppose I'll be doing the thing that I believe gives most value to others and to me. So I think um, that's really important. And I think that's part of, when I was using the word failure, I don't feel like a failure at all. But in fact, if anything, I feel really energized by what I've learned this year and discovered and about myself. And but what I do know about myself is what I have discovered is that I really need to be useful, and I'm not going. And some points in this year, I felt I could be. Before I started the coaching course, I think there was a point where I felt I could be more useful, and that's so. Starting doing my coaching, working with coachees and working with people in schools doing coaching. That's where I've really found a usefulness that I used to feel in headship. And I've also started to find that usefulness in the advisory work as well, because I've developed relationships with my schools and I can help them much more and I have much more knowledge. So I think that's really leaping out at me is that how can I be the most useful? Because that's where I find the fulfillment. It's a selfish thing, really, at the end of the day. So yeah, where is that?
If only everyone were in the world were really selfish by just wanting to be useful to other people,
Yeah.
that'd be awful, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I think that's it. And yeah, and I'd written in drivers, do I understand my motivations? I wrote most of the time I do understand my motivations, but I actually realised that I do want to explore that about why I left headship because I think I'm still confused.
Mm.
So that would be really useful. But I've written I'd like to explore my need to please.
Mm.
And then I wrote in where would you like to be, reframe it somehow to like perhaps to need to be of help. So that's coming up as a massive theme. So yeah, that was what was useful to me before I came to the session. Um, yeah, it's a bit more self-awareness, really, isn't it? It's understanding why I made that decision because I think that might be the key to everything.
There's lots of unlocking, isn't it? It feels
Yeah,
like one of those games when we move to the next level, if you can, do
yeah,
whatever. But on those last things that you said, like about being useful, about making these decisions, and about pleasing other people, although they're likely to bleed into these other sessions, does that feel like that type of aspect of your traits it's worth looking at discreetly? Not in the context
yeah.
of those things, but in the context of just you and your personality.
Yes, because what I've really recognised, what I've really noticed, and I think it's because I did these and I've been thinking about them in advance of the session.
Yeah.
What I've really noticed this week is when I make poor decisions, or what I consider to be poor decisions, is when but it's been more based on my need to please. I know that I act too quickly because somebody is upset and needs some reassurance or whatever, and then I make I need to bring my judgment in there about what the person needs, not what the person wants. So yeah, I think that's been something that's kind of front of mind.
And what would it mean to you to get somewhere on it in coaching?
Well, I think I'd end up making better decisions, wouldn't I? I mean, that's and I would, or more consistent decisions. I think that's the thing. If I was more sort of more authentically me, recognizing or in fact changing that motivation slightly, that would be um, that would be really helpful.
So making better decisions or maybe changing the decision type and changing the motivation.
Yeah. And I'm starting to think, and I'm going to have to stop myself thinking this now because I'll save it for the next one. But I'm starting to think that need to make people happy, which I think I'm misinterpreting the need to be useful, or have been perhaps as that previously. That might have been leading to quite a lot of stress in my role of head because you can't make everyone happy in that role, and so you're constantly feeling a frustration. So I think there's something to explore there as well.
Okay. So you're already starting to piece things together, aren't you?
Yeah,
Starting to see patterns. Okay. So we've been talking about this for about 45 minutes and we've drawn all sorts of things out. And I suppose I want to say it's possible that there could be more on the paperwork that want to emerge in sessions. So please do not
yeah.
worry unless there's anything urgent that you think we haven't covered. Um, it sounds to me like we've got 6 topics.
Wow.
Can you remember them?
Oh, crumbs.
I'll
Yeah.
bail you out if you can't.
Okay, I'll try. So one is, do I want to go? Why did I leave headship? Which
Yeah.
I think will lead to the question, what do I want to go back to it?
Yeah.
Um, uh, who am I? What are my values? And
Yeah.
really thinking about what would be useful values, like interrogating those to how can I articulate those better so that they don't lead me to the wrong decisions.
Yeah.
Uh, well, who am I as a coach, I suppose, and where do I go next with that?
Yeah.
We talked about advisory, but I'm still not sure whether I need to discuss it or not. But it might just come up in other things. But it could be, is that something I can continue? Is there a deadline on that?
Yes.
Work-life balance or home-work balance,
Yes.
and that sort of the impact on my children, the impact on me of the different roles. And that's 5. I can't think of the other one.
And I think the last one is this one we've just said about you and your drivers and
Mm,
need to please and all of that.
mm,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's 6 topics. Could be 6 sessions, could be 8 sessions. Who knows? It doesn't really matter. But we can have a program in front of us. If you bundle them all up, right, and now imagine that if they're all at, I don't know, if they're all at 1 or 2, if they all got to 5, or mostly got to 5 out of 5, not out of 50. How do you think that might feel if you've really made progress on all of them?
I think I would be more effective in all areas. I think understanding what I want to do, having a direction. Because at the moment, I'm okay. I kind of had made peace with just wait and see a bit, and do all these different things to the best of your ability, but just wait and see what happens. So it's all been a bit hedgy. So I think if I could get that sorted in my mind, then I would be more effective because I just have a plan. I would know where I want, and where to put my energies. Because at the moment, my thoughts are a bit split. So yeah, so I'd be clearer. I'd be able to plan for whatever it is that I want to do, and I think I'd be excited. I think I've started to feel excited recently about different roles, and I would the act of planning would be fun. Like, wouldn't be like work. Yeah.
So clear, planned excitement, and it wouldn't feel like work.
Planned fun. Yeah.
That's quite a lot, isn't it? Goodness me. How complete does this conversation feel for you now?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, not complete because I'm going to go away and think about a lot. But complete, definitely. I feel like we've got a really good plan, and I would be pleased to talk about all those things.
Fab, fab, fab. Well, I think that through the hour, the sort of the order changed a little bit, didn't it? Start with headship, maybe start with values, maybe start with your
Yeah.
drivers. So don't worry for the moment. Think about what would be the right first topic to think of, and we could decide before you come to the next session. Is that okay?
Great.
Okay, okay. And to finish it off, I'm obviously going to ask you what's been your learning? What's been your learning about yourself? Because this has been
Loads.
all about you this hour, hasn't it? Goodness.
Loads. Loads. Yeah. I don't know where to start. Okay. So I've learned that I never really explored, or I never really articulated my why I left headship, and I don't, perhaps I don't know. So that's a bit of a bombshell. Um, I I learned that values, I don't really know my own values, which I'm quite surprised about actually. And uh, and really focus. It had come to me before through doing the paperwork, but really recognize that need to be useful, and that I get a lot of fulfillment from doing that, and it makes everything I do then quite enjoyable. So, yeah, so that, I think those are the and that actually that I'm excited that I've got really great options ahead of me, and I don't, it's nice. It's a nice problem to have, isn't it?
Yeah, nice problem to have. And we are doing this on the 13th of December when we're coming to the end of the year, which for many people can be a nice moment, can't it, Fab? And as if you talk this all through, how are you now feeling about it all?
Yeah, really optimistic, and yeah, really, I suppose inspired a bit. Just inspired a bit. Inspired, Charlie. Sorry.
Oh, fired light.
Yeah, no, I am. I do. I feel I was happy. I was quite happy with my decision to just kind of see how things went. But I'm not really a go with the flow sort of person. So I'm more excited to start planning. Mm.
Well, I'm really pleased, and I really appreciate, this has been, you've worked hard and you've thought plenty of things and had some, important realizations, but also you've kept on going, you've kept on going. We've got these things. Plus, in coaching planning, we open doors, don't we? And we sort of leave them open. So I know that there's many unexplored things, and and I always want to apologize a bit for that because we can't coach through all of them, can we? Be here all day. But so thank you for indulging that bit of the process, and I'm really looking forward to working with you and helping you get all the progress that you want on these. So thank you so much for this today.
No problem. Thank you.